Ciao friends, welcome to another video from SQL BI. In this video, we're going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart, which is spending less time formatting your report. Now, I think we can all relate to this, but there's nothing that I hate more when I'm building a report than wasting time going through the formatting pane, clicking through all these options just to get the visuals to look and behave the way I want. This is not only frustrating when you're building the report, because you can waste a lot of time setting up the different visual formatting and how the visual works and behaves, but also when you have to make changes. If you want to change a color, change a font or the size, this might be something that you have to do across multiple properties, pages, visuals, and reports. This can cost a huge amount of time, and to be honest, it's just a waste. Because you could actually reuse your formatting for your Power BI reports using a number of different methods. In this video, we're going to be talking about one of those methods, using Power BI theme files, together with having the formatting logic for conditional formatting in your DAX measures. We'll even explain how these two things can intersect, because DAX measures can actually refer to theme colors, meaning that you can contain the logic of your formatting in your DAX measure of your semantic model, and you can have all of the styles and the static formatting in your theme. Now, we'll walk through this approach step by step and show you how it works, but you should also be aware that in the future, there's going to be more tools available to be able to reuse and make more changes to your reports more efficiently, thanks to the new Power BI Enhanced Report Format, or PBIR. Now, we'll leave a link for that down below in the description, but also in our article, but we're just going to focus on using Power BI Desktop as it is today, right now. So let's talk about themes and putting formatting in our measures and how these two things combined can help us spend less time formatting our reports. Let's take a look. All right, so this is our report. As you can appreciate, it's quite a simple report where we just have a couple of visuals thrown on a screen telling us information about the turnover versus previous year. Now, we just are using the default styling options of Power BI, but our next step would be to start formatting this. We would go through and select the fonts, choosing the font size, setting the units, all this fun stuff that's going to take forever. Now, if you're going to be making more than one or two Power BI reports, it is definitely worth your time to use something called a Power BI theme. What are Power BI themes? Well, they're how Power BI instructs your report what default options to use for the visual styles. So we're talking all of the static formatting options. Any conditional formatting is out of the question because that requires communication with your semantic model, but static formatting can entirely be specified in your theme file. What that means is that if you already know how you want your visuals to look for most of your reports, you can just instruct this in the theme file, set it up once, and then apply it to all your reports so that they all look the same and you do not have to spend time tweaking and formatting each individual one or copying visuals between pages and between reports. This is a huge time saver, not just for you, but also for other people in your team, in your organization, who can benefit from this effort. They can also benefit from your design skills and expertise, because if you know something about what works best to create useful charts, you can apply these design guidelines in your theme file and other people can benefit from that. So the quality of other people's reports can go much higher if they have a good theme file to use, and they'll appreciate you for it. So how do you change the theme in Power BI? Well, you access it from the View ribbon, which you can see here. We have the themes that are available here on the left. So you could choose between one of the available themes. We can click this drop down to see more options. Power BI by default is using the first accessible theme. So if you've never changed the theme file, that is what you're using. But you could also choose from many of the others. As you can see, there are some that are quite special. So you could always choose those, for instance, and your report is going to update with those styles from those themes, including changing the report page background for better or worse. So if we're looking at this default theme, for example, we could use that, or we could choose one of the other options that might work better. Not that this one does, but like I said, we could customize the theme to ourselves. So to do that, if we go at the bottom here, we have some options. For example, we could browse the theme gallery, which is an online kind of web shop or whatever, where you can find themes that other people have made. You can download them and use them. You can also find theme files available on GitHub, for example. So you could import those into your Power BI report. It's just, metadata for the styling of your report. There's nothing in there to worry about. But you could also customize the theme for yourself. Now, why would you do this? Of course, to be able to reuse your formatting, right? So let's do that. Let's customize the current theme. Well, let's actually go back to the accessible one because it's less painful. And we'll customize the current theme. So we can choose a name, we can change the colors, we can change the sentiment colors, like for example, how this KPI looks when it's positive or negative, and also the divergent colors, which we get when we start setting up our conditional formatting, for instance. So if we just use those default options. My cat is meowing because she has opinions about that. But you could also change the text, you could change some of the visual stylings, like whether they have a background, their border, and you can also change the page and the filter pane. So this all seems very simple, right? So how can I create a theme that has everything that I want when I just have these options? Well, you would be right to think that, because in fact, the user interface of Power BI Desktop only supports a limited number of options when you want to create a theme. If you want to really create a full decked out theme, you have to work with that JSON file. Now that might seem intimidating, but I promise you it's not. In order to get that file, all you have to do is you can just export the current theme by going Save Theme to create that JSON file, save it on your local machine, or of course you could open a theme that someone else made. For example, the one that we made for this video, which you can find a link to in the description for the article. All the sample files are available there. And you can also consult the documentation from Microsoft if you need help. But basically, you should open these theme files in a code editor like Visual Studio Code because it helps you format the document. So this is what a JSON file looks like. We can see that we have our colors, like our data colors in here. We have also colors for our sentiment, for the diverging, which we had seen before. And I'm setting my own colors in here with these color hex codes. So I'm not limited to what the user interface provides. I can choose any colors I want. So I can align this with my brand or organizational guidelines, whatever I like. And I can also choose colors for various other things. Now we're going to talk more about these later, so hang tight. Because you can do much more. You can choose the text, so formatting fonts and font sizes. You can also add custom fonts, but you should avoid this because they will only work if they're installed on the user's machine. So you should stick to the fonts that are available in Power BI Desktop. But of course, you can also style your visuals. And that's why most of you are here. You want to format your visuals. So I'm not going to walk through all of this right now. We're just going to take a look at what this SQL BI Data Goblin theme actually looks like if we pump this into Power BI. So I've spent an hour or two and I've created this theme. And now I'm going to upload it to my report. So it's going to apply the styles. So I'm going to just set everything to default. So I've done 0 formatting changes to anything on this page. So it's just using, it's just using the defaults so that the theme is going to control. Because if you make any custom options, the theme can't change it. So it's only going to change the defaults. And then we're going to upload that theme. So browse the theme, and we'll select the theme that I made. And the report theme is ready for use. So you can appreciate I've changed nothing except for the theme. And it's applied all the formatting instructions that I had put in that theme file. So if this is how I want my KPI visuals to look like, my bar charts, my line charts, and matrices, then I could decide this in the theme file and it will apply to all of the visuals in my report across all pages. I could then share this theme file for other people and it would work in their reports as well. They don't have to set up all of these formatting options themselves. So you can appreciate how much better this is compared to what we were looking at before. So never mind, all of the other things that we have to consider, like, choice of visuals and so on. We're only talking about formatting here, but you can appreciate how this can have a big impact on the quality of people's reports, right? So this is great, and this can save you a lot of time. It also makes it easier to maintain because it's maintained centrally. If you want to make a change, you just have to make that change in the theme file, and so long as everybody's using the latest version of that theme, which you could include in the name, for example, or however you're managing, files and sharing them between different people, then that change will be distributed across, any report that is going to upload it. And this is something that is extremely useful. So how would I actually do this? How does this really work? Well, you could go through this theme file and you could add these different elements yourself. These are not going to be there unless they've been included before, either in the example or in Power BI Desktop, but you have to specify all of these different properties. For example, whether I want the visual to be responsive, I'll choose one that's easier to understand, like the labels, for example. So the data labels. So I set, for example, which fonts I want to be used for the data labels, the font size. I want them to be bold. I want to use leader lines where they're available. And I want those leader lines to be 1 pixel in length, for instance. So you can set whatever options you want. You just have to define those properties. But what properties do you use and how much time do you invest in creating all of this? Do I have to create all of this from scratch? Well, no, you don't. If you wanted to, you can. So I created this from scratch in the last few hours myself. You can just download it and you can use it and just modify it from there. Use it as a starting point, modify the colors, modify the values. You can do that. You could also take this theme file and you could put it into a large language model tool like ChatGPT or whatever you want to use. Sometimes that works. I'm going to be honest, I tried it for quite a few times and I got pretty disastrous results, but if you get better results, all the power to you. Or you could use theme generator tools. So these are tools that give you a broader user interface than Power BI Desktop to be able to do this. We won't go through those tools in this video, but we give a brief overview of them in the article, which you can again find the link to in the description below. However, in general, it can be a nice exercise to go through an example of a theme file that someone else made, because then you can kind of understand what options are available to you and you really have control over every little thing. And if you need help in knowing, how to do this, you could always check the latest schema for the Power BI theme files, which you can find available on GitHub. Again, the link to that will also be in the description below. But generally, what we recommend is you start by customizing the theme file in Power BI Desktop. Do what you can there, choose your colors, all of these things, and then download that theme file, maybe look at some theme files that other people created, like this one, and then tweak it to be able to get the style that you want. And if you want to use a theme generator, if that helps you be more efficient and create the theme that you need, go ahead and do so. A lot of the theme generators also have really nice examples that you can use, and definitely create a theme because it will have a huge return on your investment, your time investment in the long run. Huge. It's one of the most high value tasks that you can do when you are creating reports in an organization in Power BI. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you have not created a theme file, do it. It is a huge time saver. But just make sure and just appreciate that it needs to be flexible enough for people to be able to use, to adjust it, and make sure you involve them in the process. Don't just go ahead and create a theme file for you, by you, and be surprised that no one's using it. You have to involve people in the design process, get some feedback, work on it together, go through some iterations, Because if you want people to use something, obviously you have to incorporate them in the design process, right? You know, that's true for anything. So create a theme file because it will help you be able to reuse your static formatting by just applying that theme, maintaining that theme. Now, all of that is for static formatting. What if you want to reuse conditional formatting? For example, if you conditionally format bars or colors, these kind of things. Well, for that, you could put the formatting logic in your DAX measures. So let's take a look at that. Looking at our report here, what we're going to do is we want to format these bars so that if the turnover is higher than the previous year, then we want the bar to be blue, but if the turnover is lower than the previous year, we want it to be red. Now, of course, we could use the user interface, scrolling down here to color of our bars, clicking the FX button to open the conditional formatting. And for example, we could set the gradient and we could go turnover versus 1 year prior, for instance, the delta. And if it's lower or higher than 0, then it could be red or blue respectively. And this works perfectly fine, and it's what honestly 98% of people do. But now, if I want to change this, I have to go back in that user interface and do it again. But imagine I want to do this kind of formatting across multiple properties, like also the title color, or I want to do it also here in this visual, or I also want to do it in the matrix, or on a separate report page, or in a different report. Then I have to go in that user interface for every single one of those properties if I want to make a change in the color or in the logic or whatever. And that is a huge waste of time. I mean, you can feel how frustrating this is for me. I can imagine a lot of you can relate. Now, there is a better way to do this. We could, instead of putting this conditional formatting in the user interface, if we just remove this, we could actually create a measure that specifies it. Now, to back up a little bit, we could put color information in our measures. For example, we could make a measure called red that just has a string value of red. We're creating this in a thin report, and thin reports are not very smart, so they try to tell the measure that it's a decimal number, but it's not. It's a text. So we are going to change it to a text. And now we can use that measure in our formatting. So if we open that conditional formatting dialog again, we could choose field value, which lets us select a measure in order to give the instructions on when it should give what colors. And I love this. This is fantastic. So if I click on this, now it's all red. But we want to have conditional formatting logic. So let's say if the turnover for our quantity is greater than the turnover 1 year prior quantity, then blue. Otherwise, then let's say yellow, because we already used red. We press enter, it's already using this measure, so then it applies that logic so that we have all the brands that are yellow are lower than last year, and all the brands that are blue are higher. The best thing about this is that we can reuse this, for example, in our data labels. So we could go in our data labels, scroll down past 1 billion options, and then we can select field value and select that same measure. So I don't have to mess around in the user interface anymore. I can make my data labels look nice and ugly yellow with just that bit of effort. Now, this is all fine and dandy, and I think you can understand and appreciate the value here. So static formatting in your theme, conditional formatting in the measure, but this is not where the story ends, because those two things can actually talk with one another in more ways that you might realize. So if we look at our measure, we have blue, we have yellow, but again, these are custom colors. We just specified all these colors in our theme file, so why the heck aren't we using them, right? Well, we can. We can actually reference all of the colors in our theme file that are top level properties, which means all of these boys. So all of these can be referenced in DAX and reused in DAX. So you can basically create a library of custom colors that you can reference by referencing these properties. For instance, if we say Blue, we could just say good. Instead of yellow, we could just say bad. And then when I enter this, it's going to put in exactly what is in the theme file. Now, the current theme file that I provided has bad specified as black, but I'm going to change that so that it's specified as red here. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm going to first make sure that I save this because I made a change off camera. And then I'm going to upload this new theme file. So I've only changed the theme, not the DAX. And boom, now it is red if it's bad, and it's blue if it's good. But again, we don't just have to reference those sentiment colors. We could also reference minimum and maximum, for instance. So we could say min color here, min color. And instead of saying good, you could reference any color, including visited hyperlink. And now it's going to reference those properties from our theme. So any one of these properties can be referenced, including this huge long thing here. Foreground, neutral, secondary, alt. You can reference any of those. So this is absolutely fantastic because it means that you don't have to maintain that color information in the DAX. All of the styles, the colors, whatever, all of that is in your theme. It's only the conditional formatting logic that you can have in your DAX measures. So the marriage of these two things together can really save you a lot of time when it comes to formatting your reports. To summarize, themes are really good for reusing static formatting. DAX measures are good for reusing your conditional formatting. Combining the two together can really help you do a lot when it comes to just reusing formatting in general. Now, this means that you only have to maintain these things in two places, in your measures and in your theme file. But of course, there's always going to be people who want to have bespoke changes, custom colors, and these kind of things. And of course, that's fine, that's normal. You just want to try to stick to your themes and your conditional formatting that you specified as much as possible. Because the moment you start specifying something custom in your visual, then you can't centrally maintain it anymore. And the main benefit of centrally maintaining it is you could, for example, push a theme file to all the different published reports, and then all of their formatting will update immediately. So for example, you could do this using Semantic Link Labs, and we have an example of that in the article, and this allows you to then push out to dozens or even hundreds of reports a theme change, and then all of the formatting will update. So if you have some kind of branding or style guideline changes and you want those to be reflected in your reports, it's something that you can do in a matter of minutes, rather than making it a multi-day project. So to conclude, you can reuse formatting in Power BI reports. Of course, the future does look a lot more bright, and there's a lot that you'll be able to do, maybe even as early as next year, who knows. But already, if we're using theme files and conditional formatting logic in DAX, then a lot is possible. You can save yourself a lot of time, a lot of headache. As you can see, I get pretty frustrated just doing a little bit on a camera. But furthermore, you can help other people. So if you can centralize these things and you can allow people to reuse them, it saves them time so that they can focus on just setting up the reports the way they need, and they can benefit from the effort that you put in. So it's really a force multiplier. So that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you found it helpful. And above all, I hope you enjoy making reports. Take care. We've all had these reports where we want to create a specific design, and in order to do that, we have to click through all these different menus in order to set up the visual the way we want, in order to edit the interactions or to label the latest data point, or we're using error bars to bend and twist things a certain way. Or we might end up with a report that we got from someone else. We get that report and yeah, it looks beautiful, but it's broken half of the time because it's so complicated, and it takes you 3 days just to understand what's going on, never mind to go through it and to make all of these changes. I mean, I literally once spent more time formatting the new card visual than making the entire semantic model. The entire semantic model. And the crazy thing is that I don't think that this is too abnormal, the amount of the copious amount of time that people put into formatting the reports. I really feel like this should be easier, honestly. I'm just going to go to the gym, I think. Workout is going to be a more efficient way to deal with this before I record this.